The lack of a clear developing structure was further highlighted by the highly ineffective and yet often repeated strategy of playing 3 to 4 small forwards in the same team. Stephen Milne, Ahmed Saad, Terry Malera and recruit Trent Dennis-Lane all had largely forgettable seasons. Despite the quartet playing between 9 and 17 games each this season, their numbers were really poor, with only a handful of good games between them. One thing that 2013 seemed to demonstrate was that the days of the stay-at-home forward pocket that could do nothing else were long gone. Yet the Saints not only persisted with one for the majority of the season, they actually played 3 or more of this quartet in the same team a whopping 9 times. 9, over a third of the season. Surely, given how even the most amateurish of football fans knows that it's all about run these days, surely a strategy involving limiting your number of midfielders would only be persevered with if it got results. So let's reflect. A 90-77 shock round 1 loss to the Gold Coast saw Milne get 1 goal from 13 disposals, Saad 2 behinds from 9 touches. Malera did better in that he converted his 11 disposals into 3 goals, whilst TDL got donuts after coming on as sub. An 82-99 loss to Richmond in round 2 saw Milne gather 8 disposals for 1 goal, Saad 7 disposals for 2 goals, and Malera 9 touches without troubling the scorers. A massive win over the Greater Western Sydney in round 3 saw all 3 of Milne, Saad and Malera kick 2 to 3 goals from about 15 touches each in a dominant team display. The entire quartet play again in the round 4 91-128 capitulation to the Bombers. Between them all they get a total of 35 disposals for a return of 5 goals and under 15 tackles. And keep in mind that up to this point, Milne, Saad and Malera have played every game, whilst TDL would get the axe from round 5 right up until round 10. A spirited Saints team held off a fast-finishing Bombers 77-88 in round 7, with all 3 of Milne, Saad and Malera kicking 1 to 2 goals from about 12 disposals each. In a 7-goal loss to the Crows in round 8, that same trio had about 10 disposals for a return of 4 goals. Round 9 saw a narrow loss in a high-scoring game against the Western Bulldogs, with 20 disposals and 3 goals between Milne and Saad, whilst Terry got donuts, though I can't quite recall if he was injured early and subbed out. I suspect so. In the round 11 80-84 loss to the umpires, Stephen Milne turns back the clock with 5 goals from 11 touches, whilst Saad and TDL manage a combined 20 touches for a return of 2 goals. Round 15 saw a 5-goal loss to Freo on the back of an average effort from Saad, Malera and TDL, who gathered a combined 19 disposals for 4 goals. And finally, a 6-goal loss to Carlton in round 16 saw Milne get 2 goals from 10 disposals, whilst TDL and Malera combined for a massive 11 disposals without troubling the scorers. This paints an extremely depressing picture. 2 wins from 9 games and a very clear pattern emerging, which, if noticeable to your average football fan, must surely be recognised by the coaching staff. And whilst rationally, the blame for a rapidly deteriorating season cannot be laid solely at the feet of the forward pockets, none of them were really playing well enough to justify their own spots most weeks, let alone the repeated chances that they got. Ahmed Saad's best game of the season statistically was his 11 disposals and 1 goal haul against the Western Bulldogs in round 9 that saw him lay an impressive 9 tackles, 3 more than he would get again this season. Terry Malera only ever came out to play against the fellow cellar dwellers in Gold Coast and Melbourne in round 1 and 13 respectively, though it was thought that his 3-goal haul in round 1 covered what was otherwise a very average game. Trent Dennis-Lane got 9 goals from his 8 games without ever surpassing 13 touches. Not good enough for a small forward or for a midfielder, and there were certainly more than a few of the faithful that were hoping he would be cut at the end of the season. One could at least argue, though, that both Malera and TDL at least went through the trouble of putting their hands up occasionally over at Sandringham and earned their opportunity to play their average games. Ahmed Saad, however, had a miserable season all round. How he played 13 games is simply beyond us all. Certainly Milne had the best season of the four, despite a year well below par in terms of output and with off-field distractions. He at least fired a few shots and got to go out on good terms. What made the continued selection of the unhappy quartet even more frustrating for Saints fans was that whilst these guys continued to persevere in not getting the job done, there existed a handful of players that could seemingly not buy a game. Please feel free to leave any questions, comments, suggestions, or otherwise corrections, and be sure to join in for part 3. It's the Winter Soldier here, signing out. Thank you for listening.